You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
I'm always talking on this show about how much I miss the video store. You know, I miss going somewhere that had a lot of movies that you could choose from. Now, thanks to friends of mine, I have Netflix. I enjoy Netflix for their original stuff and their TV shows that you can watch on there. I don't care for the term binge watching. I don't understand that. Modern slang irritates me to no end. You watching the show? Yeah. You binge watching it? No, I'm just watching the show. Are you binge watching it? Just please stop talking to me. Binge watching? No, I don't like that term. But what I miss is the availability of titles, because 9 times out of 10 you go to Netflix with an idea of the movie you want to watch, and it's not there, you know. And I know that if video stores were still around, I could go to the video store and I could pick up a title that I wanted. You know, Netflix just does not have a deep catalog of 80s movies or 70s movies that I'm looking for. They just don't. And I know that's because each of the studios is holding on to their titles. They all want to launch their own streaming service. But, you know, here's the thing. We're going to someday cut the cord on cable or satellite, and we're going to end up paying twice as much because each studio wants you to pony up for their individual products. You know, Disney will have one, Fox will have one, even though they're part of Disney, and then Warner Brothers will have one, and Paramount will have one, and it'll just be a nightmare. You know, it'll be the only way to get all those movies that you want, because I find myself now going to the thrift store and flipping through their movie racks, trying to find all those old catalog titles, and these are movies that I probably bought on VHS. I probably bought on DVD at some point, and then I jettisoned thinking I wasn't going to need it. And you find out, like, these movies just aren't available. So you have to buy these old DVDs, or because they don't, a lot of them are not on Blu-ray, you know, or if they are, Target and Walmart's sections are terrible. The new Target layout of their store has even less movies. Like, it's really tiny. They're only stocking the movies that you know. So you're out of luck. You have to go to Book Off, and I go to Book Off, and I'm overwhelmed because I have to go in with a list, or I won't remember the titles I'm looking for. But even then, the ones I just went looking for, I watch a lot of Red Letter Media on YouTube, and they do a show called Review where they reviewed the Critters movie series. And I had never actually sat down and watched the Critters movies. I mean, they're B-movie, fake horror versions of Gremlins. But they made it sound so interesting that I wanted to pick it up. Can't find it. You know why you can't find it? Because it's not under C for Critters. It's in the compilations because they released all 4 Critters movies together in one package, like that Family Favorites, you know? So it's tough to find. I had to go to eBay. And the thing with eBay is you get excited. I want to watch this movie. You order it. And a week later you go, oh, I totally forgot I ordered this movie. And now I don't have time to watch it. So now Critters is sitting next to the TV waiting to be watched. So I miss the video store. And one of the things I miss about the video store, especially when I was a kid, was that my mom would take me to Video Depot in the Norwalk Square, and they didn't care about ratings. They cared about renting movies. So if you were at the counter with your mom, and I remember the first time I ever went to rent movies, I rented Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and I think 16 Candles maybe. And I was like, these, out of the three of those, Fast Times at Ridgemont High is rated R. And they didn't bat an eyelash. You know, it's got nudity in it. 16 Candles has got nudity, but it's PG. But the video stores didn't care. They didn't card you. The only time that got testy is when movies like Henry and June, or Showgirls, or The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. There was a whole rash of either unrated movies or NC-17 rated movies in the 90s that push the envelope. Showgirls was the biggest. Showgirls got a big wide release, and they carded you buying the ticket. There was somebody at the door waiting to card you every time you went to the bathroom or to get popcorn. And the sad part is that movie wasn't good enough for all that. I mean, it was cheesy. If you've seen Showgirls, it's a train wreck. But it brings me to movie ratings. And this is a Patreon episode sponsored by a good friend of the show, my good friend Michael Bondy, who wrote me a letter. And he said, hey, because he usually picks a movie or something he wants me to do on the show. You could pick your own movie or topic if you go to patreon.com and search 91 Reasons. He wanted to do a commentary on some of the older movies that were rated PG and probably should have been rated R. Because he had grown up thinking that Jaws was rated R and Jaws is rated PG. And I thought that's a great idea for a show. So we're going to delve into some of these movie ratings, And I was a big fan of movie ratings because, it gave you a glimpse of what you might see in the movie. Now, the ratings are so ridiculously concise and to the point that they're like, this movie is rated R for drug use, nudity, and sensuality. Like, oh, it's not just rated R, parents are strongly cautioned. You used to just say, parents are strongly cautioned. You know what I mean? But growing up, they used to get away with a lot. And prior to the invention of PG-13, they got away with a lot in movies. So I did some homework here. I have a list. So these are movies that were rated PG that probably should have been rated R. This is prior to the invention of the PG-13, which was suggested by the man who caused all this controversy, Mr. Steven Spielberg, because it was Spielberg's movies that were so popular and so entertaining, but also contained enough, not suggestive, but enough items that probably should have garnered an R. But Spielberg's always squeaked by pretty lucky with MPAA that they love his work and they're not quick to slap a higher rating on it. Unlike someone like a Kevin Smith or a Tarantino who turns in an R-rated movie and gets an NC-17 almost immediately and has to recut. Or, the South Park movie is another example of that. But let's go back in time. We'll start with Jaws. This is the movie that started the summer blockbuster festival. Prior to 1975, summer was a dumping ground for movies because they thought people go on vacation, they go to the beach, they don't go to the movies. And Jaws changed all that. Jaws turned the summer into the movie season, and it has lasted up until, this summer. It just rolls on and on and on with big, giant movies every weekend. But Jaws, if you watch Jaws, it's a great movie. It's one of the best movies ever made. But with all its carnage in it, even though some of it, a lot is suggested, they suggest that the blonde is being eaten by the shark, but by the end of the movie, Quint is being eaten by the shark. We're watching him die by the shark. Jaws should have been rated R. The problem is, if we go back in time and we ask ourselves, if Jaws is rated R, that's going to limit the box office of it because nobody's going to take their children. And maybe it makes a lot of money, but it doesn't make the massive amount that it did. And maybe the summer movie season takes a couple of years to get going. It would have to wait until Star Wars in 1977. I don't know. But certainly Jaws warranted an R. Keeping with the Steven Spielberg producing or directing, Gremlins should have been rated R. Gremlins is terrifying. It's a really fun movie for the first 20 minutes or so. And then once the gremlins show up, once Gizmo becomes, he spawns the gremlins, it's pretty gruesome. Billy gets a saw to the head. Gremlins are blown up in microwaves and blenders. They're electrocuted. They're set on fire. People are killed. Gremlins is a pretty intense movie. The sequel's much lighter. They learn their lesson as far as tone. But the first one, and you have to understand, we're not knocking any of these movies. These movies are fantastic. We're just saying content-wise, they probably should have been an R-rated movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Fantastic. One of my favorite movies of all time. Would they make a PG movie today where the bad guys melt at the end? Melt all their skin off to the bone? Probably not. It would be a hard PG-13 or a soft R if it came out today. But Spielberg had the golden touch back then, and they weren't going to cross him. Because, again, an R rating would have seriously affected the box office of a film like Raiders. And Spielberg needed a hit after 1941. Okay, let's talk about... now, Mommy Dearest was rated PG-13, if you can believe that. Wizards, have you ever heard of Wizards, the Ralph Bakshi cartoon? It's pretty dirty. Watership Down is rated PG-13, and it's pretty traumatic. And this is a movie like Wizards and Watership Down are cartoons. And we hadn't really seen... Bakshi had done a couple of, Fast Traffic and a couple others about there were adults-only cartoons. But cartoons were the domain of children. It would take a long time for cartoons to get the respect that they deserve as an adult form of entertainment, right? But Watership Down, Wizards. How about Poltergeist? Now, I begged my stepdad to take us to see Poltergeist because it looked fantastic in the commercials. I had no idea that going into this movie, it was going to F me up for years to come. You know, ghosts don't bother me. Monsters down the hall don't bother me. You tell me that my toys are going to try to kill me, I'm a dead man. Because my room is covered in this and they're coming to get me. This is like the end of Toy Story when they turn on Sid. Like, I'm dead. So, in Poltergeist, not only does Poltergeist have the toys trying to kill children, it has a guy ripping his face off. It has a kid being eaten by a tree. It has dead bodies coming up out of the pool. And it has the mom and dad smoking marijuana, which you would never see now in a PG movie. Smoking marijuana might bump it to an R, even though in some places smoking marijuana is legal. But I don't think it's legal that way with the MPAA. I just don't think so. 16 Candles was rated PG. And 16 Candles contains topless female nudity. And not subtle. The movie does a hard cut and it goes boom and shows you her breasts. It's unbelievable. It was one of those like, oh my God, 16 Candles should have been rated R. Like, no doubt it should have been rated R. It's unbelievable that they got away with that. But again, different times, simpler times. People want to vilify 16 Candles for a whole number of reasons that are not acceptable anymore in society. But these movies are products of their time. You cannot apply modern day thinking to older movies. It doesn't work that way. Make your own movie. Make a remake of 16 Candles. Make a politically correct version of 16 Candles if that's what you want. But don't try to tear down the original. It's not, you can't go backwards. How about a film like Roger Rabbit? You go, well, it's about cartoons, right? Roger Rabbit's very adult. I'm a big fan of this movie. And one of the reasons I'm a big fan of this movie is that even though it's a mega, massive cartoon, it's not for children. The plot is as complex as Chinatown. The dialogue between the new characters in the film, Jessica Rabbit, Roger Rabbit, Baby Herman, Benny the Cab, the Weasels, it's all very adult and very dirty. So the innuendos are flying in this film. But I think if you ask kids who watched it, the reason it should have been rated either PG-13 or soft R, it's never going to get an R. Not a Disney film like, even though It's not a Disney film. It was released under Touchstone, which is where they put the more adult fare on their release schedule. But the reason it would get that is when Judge Doom kills that shoe. That gave kids nightmares because that shoe doesn't want to die, and it is begging for its life as Judge Doom puts it into the dip. That'll give you nightmares. Bonafide freaking nightmares. All right, what else we got on my list here? Oh, I have some more here. How about Ghostbusters? PG. Ghostbusters, again, one of the best movies I've ever seen. It took me getting into being a teenager to understand some of the jokes in Ghostbusters. And I think that's what makes it so interesting is that you can watch and remember, Ghostbusters spawned a long-running cartoon series and a toy line specifically for children. But the beauty of Ghostbusters is that you can enjoy it as a kid, and it's a really funny movie about the schlubs who decide to fight the paranormal. And then the movie goes along with you on your journey as you get older. And instead of laughing at Slimer putting hot dogs in his mouth, you're marveling at the scene where Ray is getting oral from a ghost. Like, what is that happening? She's taking his belt off? And why are his eyes crossed? Oh my God. You know, in the film that's presented as almost like a dream sequence. But I remember inhaling anything related to Ghostbusters. There was a book called Making Ghostbusters that came out that finally detailed all of the deleted scenes. And that's a deleted scene where Ray and Winston go upstate and battle a ghost, and that's the way they thank him. And at the end of the movie, they actually show Ray pulling back up to the castle like for a second date. I mean, that's great, right? And then there's all the stuff between Venkman and Dana, you know, I want you inside me. It sounds like there's got more than one person there already. Those are really adult jokes. You don't get them as a kid. Maybe that's why they squeaked by on that PG, because what kid's going to get these jokes? They're really... they're adult, and they're really sophisticated. Ghostbusters gets a lot, tagged working blue collar comedy, but some of the jokes are very sophisticated, and the "Want You Inside Me" one is way up there, especially when Venkman goes, "Go ahead." "No, I can't." I mean, he's arguing with himself because the woman that he's attracted to is suddenly, got her hair done up and a sexy dress and coming on to him, and we all have to fight that. It's not right, and Venkman does. He does, she can't give consent. It's lofty stuff for a kids' movie about fighting ghosts, right? Here's another one. This is a staple of children everywhere. And I know this because Josie and Rachel watched it yesterday. They watched Grease. You ever sat and watched Grease? Grease is a PG movie. It's a musical. It's a fun romp about the last year of high school, and it's also incredibly dirty. The innuendos in Grease are flying. If Grease is the word is dirty. There are so many, instances of it's dirty, and it's all played off real innocent. Like, we're not really saying anything bad. No, you are. You are, this is, oh my gosh. I mean, I did the play, and we had to change some of the lyrics from Grease Lightning. If you read the lyrics to Grease Lightning, and they do say it in the movie, it ain't no shit, we'll be getting lots of tit in Grease Lightning. I ain't bragging, she's a real pussy wagon. Now, hey, it's PG, folks. It's PG. Kanicki's talking about foam domes. They're talking about a net. And the scene where Sandy slams the car door on Danny's obvious erection. I mean, it's a dirty movie. I'm not complaining. I've seen it a lot. I took Rachel to the theater for the sing-along. So again, we're not tearing these movies down. We're just pointing out that they probably should have gotten a more adult rating. One of my favorite movies of all time is Arthur, starring Dudley Moore. I love this movie, and it's dirty. I saw Arthur in the theater. I did a whole show on Arthur, and I can't figure out how I convinced my mother to take me to see Arthur, because it's not a kid's movie by any stretch. It's about a fall down drunk who falls in love with a girl from the wrong side of the financial line, and how his family hates her and he's going to defy them to marry her. What in there says kids movie other than he's got a train set above his bed? But I enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite movies to this day. But it's very dirty, It's got some questionable language. The movie opens with Arthur hiring a prostitute. She goes, "What are you into?" "VD, I'm really into penicillin." You know what I mean? The jokes fly fast and furious, and a lot of them are really adult. But it got a PG. They remade Arthur not that long ago with Russell Brand, and the way they got the PG rating this time was they took out the drinking. Because, the first film, Arthur's a drunk. From the movie's opening to the movie's closing, he is a drunk. Back when you could have a lovable drunk as your lead. I don't think that would fly now anymore. Unless he's in a rehab, people aren't interested. Times have changed. And I sit and I get misty-eyed for the past. I really do. And I feel like Arthur's so innocent. But I do know that it's adult. I do know that he's hiring a prostitute. I do know that he's a fall-down drunk. I do know that Arthur Bach is an embarrassment to his entire family. But I love him. I love Dudley Moore's portrayal of him. There's even a couple of jokes in there about child molestation. When he's having dinner with the hooker and he goes, "So tell me about yourself." She says, "My mother died when I was 9. Father molested me when I was 12. You had 3 relatively good years." Like, it's brutal. But here's the thing. Here's the difference. And maybe this is the difference. She's a hooker. He's a drunk. But nobody wallows in it. Nobody asks for either your permission or your acceptance or your help. They are who they are. And maybe there's something noble about that. And who was it that was it? Martin Luther King Jr. said, "If you're a street sweeper, then just be the best street sweeper you can be." And maybe that's why we're so eager to be offended today, because you can't be a drunk unless you're aggressively looking for help. You can't just be a drunk. You can't be happy as a drunk anymore. But when Arthur came out, you could. All right, what's next? Return to Oz. Now, Return to Oz came out after the PG-13 was enacted, but it still got a PG because it was a Disney movie, and Disney doesn't make PG-13 movies, other than the first one they made, which was Splash, but they released Splash under Touchstone. Touchstone was created to release Splash because they didn't want Splash to be a Disney movie because it was PG-13. Right? I think that's how it works. Or maybe Splash was prior to PG-13, but they knew it was suggestive, so they didn't want nudity, because you could see her butt cheeks at some point when she's coming out of the water. But Return to Oz, if you've ever seen this movie's terrifying. It's a downright horror movie. Between Fairuza Balk's Dorothy Gale getting shock treatment to send her to Oz, or her meeting the Wheelers, which will give you nightmares. We're the Wheelers! Or meeting the villain at the end who switches heads back and forth. Like it's one of my favorites because it's so bizarre, and I know that a lot of it was directed by George Lucas. But what a bizarre movie, man! Very, very strange. Goonies was released after PG-13 had been enacted, but it did not get a PG-13. If they tried to make it now, it would go straight to Netflix or it would get an R. They'd have to tone it down. Times have changed. There's a whole sequence in that movie where they break the wang off that statue and they're trying to glue it back on. They glue it back upside down, and it's like close-ups of it, which I don't care. But I know there'd be mothers in the audience fainting away, you know? So, what do you know? I don't know if Sloth would fly these days. If the character of Sloth, I've seen some pretty mean either tweets or Facebook posts, talking about Sloth and like how bad that was back then. You're like, well, that's the story. That's the story they want to tell. And Sloth's the hero of the movie. He goes to live with Chunk at the end. Like, everybody has a good ending. It's very strange. I don't understand PC culture, so I'm not the guy to ask about that. Temple of Doom. Now, Temple of Doom is the movie that inspired the PG-13. It was Gremlins and Temple of Doom together that showed the MPAA, you got to do something. And Temple of Doom is the poster child for how the hell did this movie get an R? I mean, a PG. It should have gotten an R. You've got human sacrifice, people being lowered into lava, people having their hearts torn from their chest. They're still beating hearts. You have children being whipped. You have Indiana Jones drinking from a skull. You have a voodoo I mean, there's so many weird. The dinner scene has snakes, and they're eating monkeys' brains and eyeballs. Temple of Doom it's not as bad as I remembered, because I watched it not that long ago, and I was shocked at how entertaining it was, because it gets a bad rap. But I think in comparison to Crystal Skull, it's a shining, oh, that's a good movie. Remember, that used to be the worst Indiana Jones movie. Not anymore. But these are the movies that caused the PG-13 to be enacted. Now, the first film that came out with the PG-13 was Red Dawn. I'm a fan of Red Dawn. I actually watched Red Dawn not that long ago. I was going to review it, and it just got lost in the shuffle. It's got a great cast. Patrick Swayze, C. Thomas Howell, Leah Thompson, for God's sake. Really, really exciting movie about Russia invading the U.S., what's his name is in it? Harry Dean Stanton. Really, really cool movie. Got remade. Nobody cared. Why bother? The first one's great. But it was the first movie to come out, PG-13. And it was interesting because when it came out, I had just turned 13. So I remember like walking around crowing like, huh, PG-13. Well, sure, I'll go see it because I'm 13. And I used to tell my sister, you're only 11. So if you want to see Red Dawn, you have to come with me because I'm 13. Oh, I used to drive my sister insane for that 2 years. I didn't even go see Red Dawn in the theater. The first PG-13 movie I saw was Dreamscape. Man, I love Dreamscape. I think Dreamscape should be remade. I would love to see a big budget, big special effects remake of Dreamscape. Have you even heard of this movie? Check out the poster for it. The original poster for it by Drew Struzan looks just like an Indiana Jones movie. The difference is that all of the adventure is in your mind because they have a machine that can put you in someone else's dream. So it's Inception, but the fantasy version of Inception, the nightmare version, where this kid is menaced by the Snake Man and his father won't help him. And the plot of the movie the plot of the movie is they're going to use it to go inside the president's dream and kill the president while he's sleeping so that no one can be prosecuted for the crime. What a brilliant concept for a movie. Dennis Quaid and Kate Capshaw and the guy from The Warriors who has the bottles on his hands. I love that guy, man. What a great actor that guy is. But no, Dreamscape, man. What a stellar first time for a PG-13 movie. I really dug it. A couple others. Let's see. The Witches. You ever seen The Witches? I just heard they were going to remake it. It's based on the Roald Dahl novels about a little boy who ends up at a hotel where they're having a witch convention, and the witches turn him into a mouse. Here's the thing that would cause it to be a PG-13 and not a PG. Angelica Houston, when she reveals herself to be the witch, she is so grotesque. I think the makeup is by Rob Bottin. It's stellar. And how about the other thing? The little boy never gets turned back into a little boy. He remains a mouse forever. Explain that. I mean, if you made a movie, imagine you made a movie like that where nothing gets reset. Like, you know, in Jumanji, when the kid turns into a monkey at the end, imagine if he showed up and he was a monkey and they're like, well, there's nothing we can do. Now you're a monkey. You know, kids would have a hard time with that, with actual, long-term consequences, because so many children's movies and adult movies, they have these wacky, crazy adventures, and at the end, everything resets. You know, like The Cat in the Hat or Weird Science, where things are Jumanji, or the Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle, where things just reset at the end, and the status quo is back to the way it was. We've learned lessons, you know. We've learned our lesson, but the status quo. Now, the one that didn't do that, because it was a horror movie, was Krampus. Krampus actually ended with, they reset everything, but then there was a stinger that said, maybe it's not as good an ending as you think it is. And I appreciate those. And those always those can affect the rating. Krampus was a PG-13 movie that I thought very easily could have been an R. Very easily could have been an R. But they managed to squeak that PG-13. And a lot of studios now are cutting R-rated horror movies and R-rated science fiction movies down to PG-13 because it's supposed to boost box office. So when you see an R-rated anything, like my ears prick up like, oh, there must be really something in there really objectionable because they're sticking with the R, but it must be good. You know, because even the Alien series devolved into PG-13, I think. I don't think Prometheus was PG-13, not with that abortion section where she's having her stomach cut open and a squid comes out. I mean, oh my God. I watched that the other day on YouTube and I was still terrified. And that's a terrible movie. But that scene, you know, there's another show I should do, Michael. I should do a show where movies that are horrible except for one scene. You know, not that redeems it. Because I've always said, just because the pod race is amazing doesn't make Phantom Menace a good movie. It just means the pod race was good. You know, and same with Prometheus. Just because that scene in the operation capsule is amazing doesn't make the movie any good. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. So who wants to go to the video store with me? Because I'd like to go to the video store and rent some of these movies. I actually own all of these. Let's go down the list here. Jaws I own, Gremlins, yes, Raiders. I didn't talk about Beetlejuice. I forgot Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice should have been rated R because I don't think you can make a PG-13 movie anymore with the F word in it. I think the F word is an automatic R because he goes, nice effing model. And then he goes, grabs his crotch. I own Beetlejuice. I actually own Mommy Dearest. I don't own Wizards. Wizards has always been a pretty hard title to track down. Poltergeist, 16 Candles, Roger Rabbit, Ghostbusters, Grease, Arthur, Return to Oz, Temple of Doom, Goonies. I don't own Red Dawn or Dreamscape. I should try to find... I should track down Dreamscape. I'd enjoy watching that again. That's a good movie. it would it would make a good episode too. Sorry, I'm drinking water, folks. Remember, we're still in our heat wave, and I'm doing these episodes. I have to turn the air off and the fan off to do these episodes, so I am roasting. But it's important to get a show out. The show is the thing. So, hey, I want to thank Michael Bondy for sponsoring this episode. It was a fun episode. It's not as long as my other episodes, but hey, they don't all have to be marathons. We can end on other stuff. We can end a little sooner. Get you back to your day. Save a 2-hour show for something else, another topic, right? So, again, we got some nice press from the Midsummer Scream episode from Midsummer Scream and Rick West, David Mark, Lynn Claire, and Gary and all the people that work there. It's fantastic. Thanks again to all those. My birthday is coming up. Yes, my birthday is coming up. So if you'd like to hang out and did we do a show last year? I can't remember. I know we did a show for the Jedi Roundtable, but I don't know if we did one for my birthday. Maybe. I don't know. But if you want to hang out, look for all the details on that either next episode or the episode after. And you don't have to know anybody to show up. Neil showed up last year, and now he's on the friends list, you know? It's all good. We're all in this together. And it's not about getting a gift. It's just about hanging out. Just about, hey, it's cool to see people and talk about the show. We just did the That's from Disneyland pop-up museum display. What an amazing thing. We may do a mini episode on that as well. So, hey, this show continues to roll on. We're not ending anytime soon. I enjoy it too much. I like talking to people. So, thanks for tuning in. Check out my books on Amazon.com. Check out Patreon if you want to sponsor your own episode. This episode was sponsored by a good friend of the show, Michael Bondy. We'll see Michael Bondy in the fog. At the end of the month, August 30th, I'm hosting the Knott's Scary Farm preview event at Knott's Scary Farm, Knott's Berry Farm. That's going to be a lot of fun. I hear that it's sold out. Oh my God. Should I be nervous? Maybe, but I'm not. So, this is Jeff Tucker. I am the voice, and this is the PG-13 rated episode of 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?
His mother had passed away, his father called to war, and Wendell, a lonely, cynical boy, is exiled to a small Vermont town to live with his relatives.
Wendell, this, of course, is your grandmother, Cornelia.
Hello, Wendy. Hello, Corny.
And no one would be left unaffected by his visit.
Don't you talk at all? If you don't turn off the light, I'll slug you. I want more damn cereal. What?
Everywhere he went,
Name's Wendell. It's a pleasure, Wendell.
Wendell made quite an impression.
Ball player? Don't know yet, but if he ain't, we'll whip him into shape, I reckon.
I doubt it. I don't like athletics.
No one seemed to understand him.
New in town? No, I've been here for a couple of centuries. Well, they call you Win or something like that. How about Wendy? Wendy's a girl's name.
And he remained as distant as ever.
Fred. My father. Why don't you call him Daddy? Daddy's pretty infantile, if you ask me.
Until he found that being a kid wasn't so bad after all.
We're going to call the police! Go ahead!
But sometimes, needing someone is the bravest thing you can do.
I am the wizard. I will protect you.
It's a boy's coming of age.
Hi, Wendy girl.
From learning to stand up for himself and caring about others.
For someone special?
I know chocolates.
To just enjoying life.
Made up your mind right now. You want to ride or don't you?
I want to ride! Dear Fred, I was wondering, would it be okay if I called you Dad?